Right, let's talk about Jaycee Lee Dugard. Jaycee Lee Dugard is another survival story, right? A little girl who was kidnapped at the age of 11. This is a picture of Jaycee before she went missing with her little sister. This is around the age that she went missing. And, you know, this story for so many reasons is so heartbreaking when you think about why this happened, how this happened. She was 11 when she got taken. 29-year-old. No problem, Steph. We were a really friendly bunch in here. Don't listen to the rumours online. We just tried to meet. Thank you, Emma. Just tried to meet and go through, give the victims back a voice, and always do a case from the point of the victim and kind of what they've been through. I didn't feel like covering heartbreaking cases. So this is a heartbreaking one, but she survived, which is the most important thing. I always find it so hard. Like, her stepfather watched her get kidnapped. Thank you, Claire. Like, she was walking towards the bus stop for school and he's washing his car and he sees it happen and like tries to chase the car. And I'm so glad. So thank you. I so heartbreaking from the word go of just thinking like that pain as a parent, like you're watching her get taken. It's just so hard. It's we're going to talk about Jaycee now. One of the most annoying parts about this case is America are normally so good at sentencing people, and her abductor had got sentenced to 50 years for other sex crimes and only served 10, and he was back on the streets to take Jaycee, which that should never have happened. Thank you, Karina. Thank you everyone for helping with the gifts. Thank you so much. So. Let's get into this case. Okay, so on May the 3rd of 1980 in Anaheim, California, Terry Dugard's life would change permanently with the birth of her daughter, Jaycee Lee Dugard. Now, the father, Ken Slayton, wasn't even aware that Jaycee had been born. It was kind of a one-night stand, and he would not know about Jaycee's existence till years later. Jaycee would soon meet her stepfather, though, who would become her father figure. And he was in her life since she was like 3. He would marry her mum at 7, and he would legally kind of become her, thank you, Phoenix, for the help me. He would legally become like her dad kind of at that point. And it was a really beautiful, he was called Carl Probin. So at 7, when the parents got married, he really become her dad, and he asked Jaycee at 7, is it okay if I ask your mum to marry me? And she was so excited. He was a really good dad to her. So 2 years after the marriage, in 1989, Jaycee's younger sister Shayna was born, and this kind of completed the family. The family would move then 470 miles to Meyers in California because Carl got a job there and it was kind of a better life for the kids. And one of the reasons they moved here from Anaheim, which has got quite a high crime rate, was to raise their children in a safer environment. And they wanted a safe community for the girls to grow up in, greener spaces and a real safe kind of environment. In the new home, Jaycee continued to live a life she loved. She would play with her little sister Shayna, who she was like another mum to her. And she would dress up her little sister. She would like carry around the house. She was really kind of a second mummy to her sister. And this is a picture. The picture I showed before is her with Shayna and her mum. You just see her mum's lap. But she was really, really happy. She would, just before the tragedy, Jaycee was looking forward to an upcoming school trip. It was her first school trip at the new school in the new area. And on June the 10th of 1991, Jaycee got herself up and dressed for school. She had all pink on because in America, obviously, they don't have school uniform. And her mother had left for work early that morning. And Jaycee had managed to convince Carl to let her walk to the bus stop by herself. Now, the bus stop was literally less than like a whole football pitch away from the home. So their house was here and there was a little hill that went up and you could see it from the front garden. You could see the little hill and there was a bus stop there. And Carl had decided, like, Jaycee's only 11, so he decided, I'm going to pretend to wash the car so I can watch her and make sure everything's okay. So he's out there, he's got the baby in a car seat next to the car, he's washing the car, and she's walking to the bus stop. Now she almost is at the bus stop when a car pulls over beside her. And Jaycee says, I thought they were going to ask me for directions, so I kind of looked over. And instead, she is struck with a stun gun. She's hit with the stun gun, and the electricity and pain knocks her unconscious. She's 11. Thank you, Kirsty. And a woman would climb out of the car and drag her into the back seat. And it took off. Now, inside of the car, Jaycee was quite quickly stripped of all of her clothing, except for a little butterfly ring, which she managed to take off and hold in her hand because she didn't want them to take it from her. The woman who had taken her placed a blanket over her head and kept Jaycee pinned down onto the back seat as she faded in and out of consciousness for the next 3 hours as they kept striking her with a stun gun. The only time Jaycee managed to say anything during the whole 120-mile journey was to tell them, my parents aren't rich, you won't be able to get a ransom. Because she really, as a kid, someone who'd only really seen kidnappings and that on the TV, was thinking, this must be a ransom thing, right? She never could have known why they took her. Back outside Jaycee's home, Carl had seen everything that had happened to his stepdaughter. He had rushed to try and save her. He chased after the car until he literally could run no more. He said it was a Mercury Monarch car, and he was unable to regain the distance. He tried to run and run. Now, the pair who had taken Jaycee were Philip Garrido and Nancy Bacangra. That's a really hard name. These two. Now, not much is known about her and who she really was or what she had done before, but a lot is known about him. Now, Philip Garrido has a laundry list of sex crimes. Now, in his early life, he was described as a good boy. That was until he was in a motorcycle accident as a teen. Afterwards, he started to abuse drugs, mostly methamphetamine and LSD. He later admitted during a court case before Jaycee that his hobby was to go to elementary schools and pleasure himself outside while he watched the girls go to school. He said he'd been doing this for years, that he just liked to go out in the morning, get into the car and watch elementary aged school children, which is primary school in this country, while he pleasured himself inside of his own car. In 1972, Garrido was arrested and charged with repeatedly raping and kidnapping a 14-year-old girl after he drugged her with barbiturates. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Jig. So that was in 1972. The barbiturates that he would give this child would make her drowsy, relaxed, and unable to fight back. And the case could not go to court because he had threatened the young girl so badly that she refused to testify. The year after this horrendous crime, Garrido married his high school sweetheart, Christine Murphy. Now, she knew Christine Murphy, his first... I hope so, Jen. It's been going on for a long time. I will cover it when it happens, obviously. So, Garrido married Christine Murphy. Now, Christine Murphy knew that he had raped girls when they were both at secondary school. Now, this isn't her because I won't check. Christine's face isn't available, but she already knew that he had raped girls while they'd been high school sweethearts, yet she'd gone on to get married to him in a relationship. That relationship went as well as you could expect, right? He would kidnap her, rape her, commit domestic abuse against her, because that's who this man is. He gets turned on by violence and hurting people. So Christine would eventually escape, and she would only escape once he had kidnapped and done something else to another girl. Now, remember, she married him after he was accused of repeatedly raping the 14-year-old. She married him after that also, because who doesn't want to marry a man who rapes children? Now, in 1976, a woman named Catherine Calloway, who was 25, was kidnapped from South Lake Tahoe in California and taken to a warehouse in Reno, Nevada. Garrido would keep her there for 5.5 hours, where he would repeatedly rape her. Now, a police officer happened to go past at this time, spotted Garrido's car outside the building, and when he went to investigate the warehouse, found the lock was broken and someone had broken into that warehouse. Catherine then ran out of the warehouse hearing someone outside and begged the officer to help her. She was naked, and Garrido was arrested on the spot for keeping her hostage for 6 hours and raping her repeatedly. The court ordered a psychiatric evaluation, where Garrido was diagnosed as a sexual deviant and a chronic drug abuser. A neurologist examination suggested that drug use could be responsible in part for his sexual deviation. And they said Garrido showed considerable evidence of anxiety and depression and personality disorder. He was convicted on March the 9th, 1977, and was sentenced to 50 years in the Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas. So he was sentenced to 50 years in 77. Hello, evening. So despite getting 50 years, he then met this woman. She met him while he was incarcerated for this horrific rape. And she was at the penitentiary because she was visiting her uncle who was in there for drug crimes, and she fell in love with him. And so she just, I know, I don't even care about his mental health. In 77, yeah. So the pair married inside of the penitentiary on the 5th of October, 1981. And despite being sentenced to 50 years, he was released in August the 26th of 88. So he actually served just 11 years out of 50. After his release, the couple moved to Antioch in California, living with Garrido's elderly mother in her home. Garrido had to wear a GPS bracelet and was regularly visited by parole officers. Local deputies and federal agents who would come and check out the house. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you so much. Now, this takes us up to the point where Jaycee was taken. Now, police on the day that Jaycee was taken, now the media starts getting flooded with newspaper articles about Jaycee being taken. I've got one of the first here, actually. So it says federal investigators have joined California and Nevada law enforcement officers to look for an 11-year-old girl. Thank you, Lulu. Thank you so much. Who was abducted Monday morning as she walked to school in a neighborhood near South Lake Tahoe. El Dorado County Sheriff's Officer said Jaycee was pulled into a late model sedan outside of a home. The girl's father saw the abduction from his nearby home, and the getaway car sped away on Pioneer Trail. So this was, Jaycee was starting to be covered. It was a massive case in the media. Let me just vape for a second. Now, the first suspect in the case was Jaycee's birth father. He was surprised to get a call from the police because he didn't even know she'd existed. So he gets a call from police that we need to come out and interview you about what's happened to Jaycee. And he's like, who? And they're like, Jaycee, your daughter. He's like, I didn't know how to daughter. And at this point, he finds out not only has he got a daughter, but he's probably never going to meet her. She's been kidnapped. And one of the main suspects is Carl, her stepfather. You can imagine how this looks, right? We've seen other cases where this actually has been the case. A mother goes to work, stepfather's at home alone with the daughter. The daughter goes missing. So we've seen this all the time. So he is a suspect. He passes several polygraph tests. He keeps saying, like, look into everything, come check my phone, check my house, check everything about me. Like, please rule me out. Like, I love this little girl like she's my own daughter. I would never. And eventually he is ruled out. Within a few hours of Jaycee being taken, local and national news is covered with Jaycee. And within the first few days, dozens of volunteers go searching for her. Tens of thousands of flyers are sent all over the US. Meyers, where she was living, is covered in pink ribbons tied to trees to show support for her family. Terry, who's Jaycee's mum, she founds the Jaycee's Hope group that directs volunteers to do different efforts in searching. They sold cassettes of the song Jaycee Lee by Larry Williams, t-shirts, sweatshirts and buttons to raise money to further fund searches. On June the 14th of 1991, the Fox show America's Most Wanted, hosted by Adam Walsh's dad, who we talked about the other day. They run Jaycee's story to try and get it out nationally. Now, in ensuing years, a continuous effort was made to find Jaycee. Her mum says, like, she's not dead. I can feel that she's still alive. I just want to bring her home. And while this is all happening, Jaycee has been held captive in Garrido's back garden. He has like this secondary backyard, and she's been living in a shed for the first 3 months where he keeps her locked up in a shed with just nothing. She is repeatedly raped. He won't let her inside of the house. He won't let her have anything. And then over time, he begins to give her little things like a book, a television, just different things. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. I'm going to try to just do it in a way that's not overly upsetting. But when Jaycee was taken first to the shed from the car that first day. A blanket was kept on her head so she couldn't see where she was going. Neighbours never saw her. She was taken straight into that back garden. Now, she was put in a tiny shed that was soundproofed on the first day, and she was handcuffed and left naked on a bed within that shed. And Garrido got into Jaycee's head, Philip. He told her repeatedly, like, if you get out of this shed, what's waiting is a gang of Doberman dogs that will rip you to pieces. They've been trained to do this. Now, she's an 11-year-old little girl. She's never lived away from home. She's never even been on an overnight school trip. So she is believing everything that's being told to her. And she believes that if she tries to get out, she will be killed. She also knows at this point that Philip's wife has helped to kidnap her. So there is no one inside the home that's going to save her at any point. For the first week, Jaycee remained handcuffed in the shed with Garrido as her only contact at this point. She never saw Nancy anymore, and it'd be Garrido that came out every time. He would sometimes bring her food and talk to her. She was made to use a bucket as a toilet. And Jaycee's abuse began just a day after she was taken. Garrido forced her into showering with him, and she would start to be raped at least once a week. And this would continue for the first 3 years of her captivity. Now, you just can't even imagine as an 11-year-old child this being your existence. She would literally stay inside of the shed, handcuffed up, with no one to speak to, no book, no TV, and just wait to be raped. Because, and people talk about Jaycee afterwards having Stockholm syndrome, which I don't believe that's what she had. I don't believe she had empathy for her abductor. I believe she was in survival mode. When you are living in silence and there's no one there, and then sometimes he shows up and it feels like there's just someone there for a minute, like you're alive, you're sane for a minute, like this. She was 18 years, Springy. She remained in captivity for 18 years. I get goosebumps when I think about it. Like, as an 11-year-old, thank you, hey Kelly, you're right. As an 11-year-old, everything ended that day. Everything. And her life just changed. She had been the little girl wearing all pink with the bows running towards a school bus, and then everything changed. She was 29 when she came out. She was 11 when she was taken. After a month and a half being held, Jaycee was moved from the tiny shed into a slightly larger room, but still in the backyard. She stole everything, Lulu. And do you know what? She's such a hopeful person now. She's such an amazing person. And it's one of these things, again, where you think, like, this would be enough for most of us to just come out of it and be like, I can't go on. I can't even do anything. I'm just so broken. But she's not. She's not. She literally is. She's a true hero. When she's moved into the bigger part, hey Tina, into the garden, she is handcuffed to a bed, but she's in a slightly different area. And Garrido is coming out. He's not only raping her, but he's spending a lot of time with her now, trying to program her mind. He's talking about demon angels. He's saying that demon angels made him take her, that Jaycee is there to help him with his sexual problems. And he's putting so much on her as an 11-year-old child. He's saying to her, by you staying here and you being captive in my home, I don't have to rape people. So you're actually saving a lot of little girls from being raped. And that's your job, right? Your job by the demon angels is to be here to fulfill my sexual desires, so that actually me raping you is stopping other people getting raped. And she starts to feel this as a thing. She starts to feel like at least other little girls are safe and back home with their own mums. She starts feeling that pressure. Now, at some point in about 6 months into her captivity, and we're remembering this from Jaycee, obviously everything kind of blurred into one for her, she's provided with a TV, but she's not allowed to watch news stations or any news. She's only allowed to watch like daytime television and things like that. She's not allowed to be aware of any of the search efforts for her, or the fact her mum is still looking for her, etc. And this is obviously in the power of an abuser to take away her belief that someone's looking for her. You know, he can tell her then, your mum thinks you're dead, your mum doesn't care, she's not looking for you, and you can really get into her head. Now, Garrido's abuse would increase when he went on runs. And the runs that he would go on was methamphetamine runs. And during these binges, he would force Jaycee to keep him company, making her listen out for demon voices. Thank you. He would tell her that he was a servant of God, and I just don't understand Kirsty, literally. But she married him knowing he was in prison for rape. What do we really expect from her? any woman, and I'll just say this loud and proud, I don't care who I offend, any woman that marries somebody who has already hurt children, thank you everyone, you're also a monster. If you know someone is a prolific rapist or child abuser and you think you're going to get in a relationship with them, you're a scumbag. Like, honestly, do you know what I mean? The only thing that should be happening to those people is death. What are you thinking? You're going to go on and have children with a rapist that rapes children? Like, what are you thinking at that point? It's like one of the most well-written to prisoners in the whole of America is Chris Watts. Chris Watts, who murdered his children, placed them in an oil drum, murdered his pregnant wife, placed her in the ground, forced her to have a coffin birth and expel a baby in a pile of blood in the ground. And women, there's a love group on Facebook where they post pictures of them going, oh my God, look at his muscles. Like, oh my God, his wife was such a bitch, she couldn't keep him happy. And oh my God. And I just think, you're off your fucking head at this point. The last thing his little girl ever said to him was, don't do to me what you just did to my baby sister, and was found with bite marks all inside of her own mouth as she bit down on her own tongue, pleading with her dad to stop suffocating her. And you all know those facts. You know those facts and you're still writing to him. The girls were buried in special coffins because they were kept in oil. They could explode at any minute. So that is the life that he gave to his family, and you're writing to him. I'll cover the case again soon because I literally will talk about these women because I just think it's mad. So her book is very good. I'm going to advertise her book at the end of this because I think it's a really, really good book. I've read it as well. It's really good, isn't it, Ragdoll? It's such a sad book, but it's such a triumph and what she managed to do. So when he would attack her during, like, rape her during these methamphetamine runs, he would then be obviously paranoid, talking about demons, God. So he would do all these things to her, and then start saying weird stuff. And she, because she was only like 12, 13 at this time, their minds are like a sponge, right? And he's saying all this weird stuff. She doesn't know if people are coming to get him, what's going on, because he keeps saying madness. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for all the gifts, guys. 7 months into captivity, Jaycee would be introduced to the woman who dragged her into the car on June the 10th. Nancy bought Jaycee a stuffed animal and gave her chocolate milk and apologised to her. And she said to her, like, I'm really sorry. And this literally makes me so angry. This woman, who literally at this point is in her 40s, says to Jaycee, I'm really, really sorry. Here's some chocolate milk, but I didn't want him to rape me anymore. You chose to marry him. You chose to marry him. You chose to marry him, and you're giving this little girl who's 11 chocolate milk as if it makes up for the fact she's now his rape target because you're no longer. Thank you, Christina. It just makes me so fucking angry. Now, Jaycee would later say in court that she didn't want anyone to think of Nancy as a victim because she said, let me tell you something, this woman was more manipulative than him. They were as bad as each other, and actually, I'll tell you about it in a minute. She said actually they were not nice people, great people, any of those things. This is the book here if you want to quickly screenshot it. A Stolen Life, if you want to screenshot it now. So Nancy would switch between trying to act motherly to Jaycee and being cold and cruel to her. She was jealous. No problem. She was jealous of the attention that Jaycee would get from Philip, and so she would punish Jaycee for that. She would force Jaycee to clean the house and do other bits. Oh, I'm so sorry, Bon. I'm so sorry. I hope you're okay. I can't even imagine. I'll give you a follow back in case you ever need to talk to anyone or anything. And obviously I'm not everyone in the world, but just in case, you know. Now, she also said to her at one point, Nancy, that she was really, really mad at Jaycee because so many people were looking for her. And she was like, what makes you so special? And Jaycee was like, I'm just 11. Like, I didn't want any of this to happen. No problem, Bob. Nancy would... Now, at one point, and this is really important to know, because people have before tried to see Nancy as a victim, Philip was arrested at one point for failing a drug test, and he stayed in custody for a couple of weeks, and Nancy continued to keep Jaycee in captivity. She didn't let her go. And that's really important to know because she had the chance to let her go and she didn't. Now, Jaycee at some points was given a kitten. She was given a kitten twice. They're both as bad as each other. Like, you literally helped him take her, aren't they? And you literally, yeah, of course she is. Like, I hate this woman. And the fact that these women afterwards always tried to play a victim, like, they always try to go, well, I couldn't do anything. Even now, you married him knowing he was a rapist. You knew he'd hurt children before. You helped him to kidnap her. And then you literally, 100 times over, you could have released her daily, and you didn't. You could have called the police. You could have done anything. Now, when you find out later what would happen, how many chances there were to actually help Jaycee, there were many times when probation officers were in the house looking round, checking he wasn't doing anything wrong. There was many times when police were there and federal agents at the house, and they looked around the house but never checked the garden. And at any point, Nancy could have said, check the garden. She had law enforcement there with guns, and she could have said something. She didn't. So twice the couple would give Jaycee a kitten to raise, saying that it would give her something of her own. But then they would get mad at her and kill the kittens, and they would just disappear. And in the end, she didn't want any more kittens because she got fed up of this control mechanism of them giving her something to love and then taking it away. Now, Jaycee at some point got, she had some books in the back garden, she had some paper, and she began keeping a journal. And she would write every day about these kittens, about her life, about her mum. Now, at some point, Philip Garrido found these journals, and because she was using her real name, Jaycee, he ripped them up. And this would be the last time. This was 7 months in. He told her she was never allowed to use her name again, and she wasn't allowed to ever say Jaycee. So she didn't say the word Jaycee for 18 years after that. One of Garrido's neighbours, Patrick McQuaid, would later remember when he was a child, he met Jaycee through the fence. And it wasn't too long after Jaycee was abducted. She asked him his name, and she told Patrick, this is where I live. And Garrido come out at that point and stopped all conversation. And he forced Jaycee back into the shed. And Patrick, who was just a little kid, younger than Jaycee at the time, said, I just didn't know anything different. I just didn't even picture what was going on. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze. I swear I'm allergic to something else in this house. I'm going to stop for a minute and just show you some of the pictures of the back garden, because I feel like, sorry, I feel like it's really hard to imagine what could possibly be if you haven't ever seen it. Thank you, everyone, for the gifts. So let me just put them up. Thank you, Trisha, so much. So this is kind of like some of the back garden, so I'm going to show you. So they lived in kind of a hoarder's house anyway. This is some of the places where Jaycee would live. So this is kind of like the tents and shacks. This is kind of the back garden here where she was living. It'll be the tree pollen, do you reckon? I don't even think I've got thingy bob. So this is what it looked like from like above, okay? There was the main house. I'll show you the main house in a minute, and then all of these tents. Now, at some point, she'd become a mother to 2 children, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. So she started to... So this was the actual house here, this one here, and then hidden amongst all those trees were all of these tents and stuff where she was living. Now, at some point, she'd have 2 children, and she'd even start to build like nurseries and schools and teach the children. She literally was the best mum to them, and literally she did just absolutely take care of them. This was the first shed she was kept in. This was a locked gate. I thought you just blocked Jackie the mod then. I was like, what? I didn't know how you did it, but it wasn't Jackie. These are some of the books they found that she had read every single one about 1 million times. Thank you, Ange. So this is kind of like where she was raising her children. She just made this little area for them. It's so heartbreaking. Oh, those little, is it the ones with the bums out? So let me put a picture of Jaycee up. Thank you, Ange. I think I truly believe, like, and obviously Jaycee was far too young, but she'd been forced to grow up very quickly. I believe that having children changes us all, and I believe she may not have survived had she not become a mother, which obviously it's not good that she did become a mother because obviously it was to rape, but actually she says those little girls saved her life and they gave her something to live for, to survive for, to make it work for, because she had to do what she did. So 3 years after being held in captivity, Jaycee was freed from her handcuffs and was kept inside of a bolted room. The same year on Easter Sunday, Jaycee was given her first cooked meal since she'd been in captivity, her first cooked meal, and they told her, "You're pregnant." Now, Jaycee had realised that she'd been putting on weight, but she didn't realise that she was pregnant or even what that meant. They also then made her watch television programmes to watch women in labour to understand what it was going to be like. And I can't even believe how terrifying that must have been. So she gave birth to her first child when she was 14. Pregnant at 13, gave birth at 14. She gave birth on August the 18th of 1994. After giving birth, Jaycee was raped less frequently. The assault stopped completely when she became pregnant again. And her second daughter was born on November the 13th of 1997 when she was 17. Jaycee learned used what she had learned up to the age of 11 when she was kidnapped to raise her daughters in captivity. She worked desperately to keep the girls safe from Philip Garrido, and she had basically made a deal with him. "You will never rape my children. It won't happen." And he believed that that would never happen. And I think at this point, people talk about Stockholm Syndrome, and Jaycee's become very mad around people saying that's what she had. She says, like, "I didn't love them. I didn't feel empathy for them. I had two little girls that I had to keep safe, that I had to protect. And as long as I had them with me and they were safe, like I could live that way." She was a proper mum. She gave the girls, she taught them the ABC, she taught them how to read. She taught them how to plant flowers in the backyard. When she was, and they were only allowed out when they were watched. They were kind of in a really bad situation. Philip and Nancy forced Jaycee to tell her daughters that Nancy was their mother, and she was their older sister. Now, the girls began being taken out into town, all three of them, Jaycee and her daughters, and they were forced to tell a certain story, that Jaycee was kind of the friend and she was staying from out of town. And she would also work at Philip Garrido's print shop. So she never really hinted at who she was, but she had been programmed. She had been kept in captivity for so long that she'd been there longer than she hadn't. So for her, it was just like survival. And it was just like, I imagine for her, being allowed to go to the print shop, allowed to go out and stuff was a big thing, because if she said anything or even was a little bit suspicious to people, he would have stopped her having that freedom too, and she would have had even less. So to her, she was probably just thinking, as long as I keep my girls safe and I keep my head down, like everything will be all right with the world. She may even have stopped thinking too much. I knew she thought about her mum all the time, but she may have thought, this is never going to stop for me, so I just have to make it livable. Yeah, so people afterwards, Lulu, like, you would not believe online how many people came for her. You were at his job, you had access to email and phone, you didn't try to contact anyone, why didn't you? Then they started going, oh, maybe she had Stockholm Syndrome, maybe she was in love with her captor. She was a child who had never known any different. She literally wanted to survive for her children. That people kept saying to her, why didn't you? Why didn't you? Why didn't you? And it's pretty similar, as the same way as what they say to women with domestic abuse. Why didn't you leave? Because we wanted to survive. Like, because I didn't want to get killed, because of this, because that. Like, why ask such stupid questions in a situation where we chose it? So I just think she was too scared. She was too scared. She knew how to do these things. She was 7. She was 11 when she was taking Kim. Thank you, Pippin. Thank you, Em. So at each of, when Jaycee's been held in the backyard, Garrido was still being visited by probation. At each of the visits over the years, they never looked in the back garden. Thank you, Lulu. They never checked the back garden. Thank you, Lulu. Jaycee was never discovered. Now, over the 18 years, they were there at least every 6 months. Thank you, Naomi. They were there at least every 3 to 6 months. They'd look around his house, look for child porn, look for anything that he had done to break his probation. They never went into the backyard. And she was there the whole time. On April the 22nd, 1992, a call came in. A male voice called Contra Costa County Sheriff Department and claimed they had seen Jaycee at a gas station less than 2 miles from Garrido's property. They claimed she was intently staring at a missing person poster of herself, thank you, before leaving in a large yellow Dodge van. The caller didn't identify themselves, and when police arrived at the scene, nobody was in the area. They said they were sure it was Jaycee. It looked just like her. Thank you guys for the gifts. And they said she was staring at this missing persons flyer that was in the window of the gas station. Years later, when the police searched the property, they found a van matching the description given in the property in the garage, but they never even considered him to be a possibility for the kidnap of Jaycee. Now, they knew previously, thank you, Lucy, that he had raped and held captive a 14-year-old child and raped her repeatedly. So when an 11-year-old girl goes missing 120 miles away from your house, you have similar vehicles, you're known as a paedophile. Why are they not searching this more? I don't understand. She could have been saved so quickly. In June of 2002, the Anapoc Fire Department responded to a call that a juvenile had a shoulder injury at Garrido's property. They had fallen whilst in the swimming pool. And there's like this little tiny above ground swimming pool with like a ladder. The information wasn't relayed to the parole office, who didn't know that Garrido was not allowed to have children on his property. So they came out and had a look at her shoulder. In 2006, one of the neighbours called 911 to inform them that there was someone living in his backyard, someone who had children with them. They said Garrido was a psychotic psychopath with a sexual addiction to children, and you need to come around and search his house. He's got a child living in the back garden, a woman with children. A deputy sheriff then arrived at the house, spoke to Garrido on the front porch for 30 minutes, and asked him, do you have anyone living in your backyard? Philip said no, and the police left. He didn't even go around and look. This was in 2006. Like, why would you not? Like, he's on parole for sexual abuse and rape. Like, he should have served 50 years. He got out after 10. Why wouldn't you check? You only have to look in the backyard to see that there were tents everywhere. Like, why would you not go and check inside of them? I don't understand. They could have saved her. Sorry if anyone can hear Tegan singing. She's borrowed my headphones. Now I can hear her singing loudly. Oh my God. She's singing very badly. It's lazy police work. It is lazy. Later, the active sheriff apologised for the mistake made. On November the 4th, 2009, the California Office of Inspector General issued a report listing all of the lapses made in the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. In a report, it was pointed out that Garrido was incorrectly classed as only needing low-level supervision, which opened the door to all the other lapses that were made. The inspector detailed an incident when a parole officer encountered a 12-year-old girl in the home during a check-in. This was Jaycee. Garrido said, this is my brother's daughter, my niece. And they said nothing, even though he was a prolific paedophile. Months before that report occurred, a mind-blowing thing happened. Just a month before that report was put out, Jaycee Dugard was found alive and well. On August the 24th, 2009, Garrido went on a drive to the FBI. He went himself to the FBI San Francisco office, where he left an essay that contained his ideas about religion and sexuality. He said he had found a way to use religion to make sure people didn't commit sex crimes. This essay described how Garrido had cured his deviant behaviours and his rapiness he'd found a way of controlling human impulses. So he drops this off at the FBI office saying, look, I think I could help you guys out. I think I know how to curb sex offences, despite the fact he still has a current victim in his home who he is raping, who has delivered 2 children as a child. But, you know, he thinks he can solve people. So the same day, he turns up at the University of California in Berkeley, and it's called University of Berkeley, I think, in California. He goes into the campus with Jaycee's daughters, and he wants to speak there as a guest speaker about his God's Desires program. And he asked to speak to somebody there about his new thing he's got going on. Now, he's just an absolute nutter. And this Lisa Campbell, who he goes to speak to, says he's erratic And the two girls who are with him look pale, sullen, submissive. And she says, can you come back tomorrow, Philip, so we can talk in more detail? Because she wants to have time to research this man and maybe involve police. And thank God for this woman, because she just thinks this. She goes, the two children with him were not acting right. They looked like they couldn't speak. They were looking down. They were pale. They were really kind of worrying me. Let me just have a drink because I've got a cough in a minute really badly. Okay, I'm back. Oh, thank you. Right, sorry, I really had to cough. Oh, so she then asks. She then takes his name, and he says he'll come back tomorrow at 2 p.m. And then he goes and she asks one of her friends who's a police officer to look into his name. She goes, this nut has just turned up at campus. He's got two girls with him. They look like really unhappy. I just want you to look into him. His name's Philip Garrido. And they discover he's a registered sex offender on federal parole for kidnapping and rape. Okay? So at this point, at 2 p.m, Garrido went back to his meeting, once again taking Jaycee's daughters with him. And Ali, the police officer, sits in to observe. And she's there to see the children. They look like they haven't been in sunlight. They have unnaturally pale complexions. They're acting robotic. And Ali then reports it to the parole office that he is absolutely breaking his parole conditions. Now, to parole, this is what I don't even know as a police officer how you can let him leave with the girls knowing, but she did. And then two parole agents go out to Garrido's home. He's handcuffed while they search the home. They find his elderly mother there who has dementia, and Nancy Bonkangra. And despite that, the agent still took Garrido to the office, and on the drive over, he says the girls were a daughter of a relative. I'm allowed to have them there. He's not supposed to have any contact with minors, but yet still. The agents then drive him home because he's just told them that he's allowed to have them there. And they tell him about the reports from UC California, and they just say, we just wanted to check everything's okay. And they tell him he's got to come back into the office, the police office tomorrow, and bring the daughters with him, Jaycee's daughters. They say, we want to see these children. We want to make sure they're okay. And this time, Jaycee comes with the daughters. She comes into the office and she tells the officer, my name's Alyssa. That's the name that Garrido has given her this whole time. And she introduced her daughters. And she obviously hasn't used the word Jaycee for 18 years. Now then, the parole officers separate them all. And they say to Jaycee, look, you can tell us if you need to tell us anything. She says, look, my name is Alyssa. The girls are my children. Like, I know he's a sex offender, but he's a changed man. He's a great person, because she's terrified. He's good with my kids, like he'd never hurt my kids. She doesn't say that he's their father. The kids say exactly the same thing. They're extremely defensive and they're agitated. Now, she's literally being questioned by another parole officer, a female at this point, and Garrido in the other room has confessed. He's confessed. He said, look, I kidnapped that girl. That's Jaycee Dugard. And Jaycee always says to this day, like, I felt so worried and so terrified that even if I told them who I was, they would take my daughters. And I just didn't want them to take my daughters. So I just thought, I can't say anything because they may think I'm a victim. I'm not strong enough. I'm not a good enough mum. I'm not, they're going to take them away from me. So she just kind of was like, I'm just going to deny it all. At this point, they come out and they say, are you Jaycee Dugard? And she breaks up crying. She says, I've not used that name for 18 years. I'm Jaycee. Now, like I said before, it's been suggested that Jaycee has suffered from Stockholm Syndrome. This is what she says in her own words. The phrase Stockholm Syndrome implies that hostages cracked by terror and abuse become affectionate towards their captors. Well, I find that really degrading that people say that. I had a family And I do not want my family to believe I was in love with this captor and wanted to stay with him. I didn't want this. I mean, this is so far from the truth. It makes me want to throw up. I hated him. I hated her. But I love my daughters and I adapted to survive. She was furious that people kept saying it. And in America, that was the big story, right? When she was found. Jaycee found, Stockholm victim. And she was like, no, you're making it sound like that's what I wanted. Like, this is the life I chose. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be with my mum. So they, at this point, they phone Jaycee's mum, Terry. And she's like, hello, officer, because she's used to getting these calls over the years. And they say, we've got Jaycee, she's alive. And she is screaming. She's like, I told you she was alive, I told you. And they put Jaycee on the phone to her mum. She says, hi, mum. And her mum says, I'm coming, baby, I'm coming, baby, I'm coming. And then her mum puts down the phone and turns up at the office. And she's reunited with her daughter on August the 27th, 2009. Philip Garrido, who's aged 60 at the time, was sentenced to 431 years for charges of kidnapping and 13 counts of rape. Nancy, aged 55, was sentenced to 36 years for charges of kidnapping and rape. In court on the day of sentencing, Jaycee gave Terry a note to read out to her captors because she didn't want to do it herself. She said to Garrido, because she didn't want to go, she said to Garrido, I chose not to be here today because I refuse to waste another second of my life in your presence. And to Nancy, Jaycee said, there is no God in the universe that will ever condone your fucking actions, because Nancy kept blaming it on God. And Jaycee wanted them to know that actually that's you can't blame God. I wanted to open this article a minute because I thought this was... there was an article between with Jaycee and her mother, what I thought was really important. I think there's a good message there for everyone. So for the first time ever, Jaycee Dugard, the California woman kidnapped in prison for nearly 2 decades, is describing giving the birth to a 14-year-old in the back garden, age 14 in the back garden. 3 years into her captivity, Dugard went into labour. It says, she says, I didn't know I was in labour. I was still locked up at that time. I was just scared. She talks about her book, A Stolen Life, and it goes on about that. That's not really what I want to talk about. I want to go into her mum. She said she thought of her mum every day, and she used to do this thing every day where she would look at the moon, and her mum used to always do when they were at home at bedtime. My mum would say, like, no matter where you are in the world, like, look at the moon, and the moon is my love for you, kind of thing. So she began to always look at the moon, and her mum, missing Jaycee, would always look at the moon, and a lot of nights they were looking at the moon at the same night, just wishing of being together, which I thought was beautiful. Now, she said that she goes on in this interview again to say, people don't understand that I didn't have Stockholm syndrome. There's a switch I had to shut off. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being beaten to death, you know, and you can't imagine being kidnapped and raped, you know. No one can imagine what I went through. So it's just you do what you have to do to survive, and I was doing what I had to do to survive. She said, I thought of my mum every single day. I wanted to see her more than anything. Any day, any day at the beginning was like I would cry every day. And it'd be the hardest when I think about her and what she was doing. And then I was trying to convince myself that she was better off without me. She said I was worried that she would forget what my mother looked like. She said I also worried that she'd forget what I looked like and what I sounded like. Her mum Terry's in this interview, and I think what she said is really important. So she said that I've got a picture of them together actually that I'll put up when I talk about this bit. This is Jaycee with her mother. This is Jaycee when she came home on the left, and her mum. She looks so much like her mum, doesn't she? So her mum remembers their first phone conversation. She remembers shouting, I remember you shouting, we found her. I was crying, you know, when you're crying, you can't speak. And I just said, come quick. And I remember saying, I'm coming, baby, I'm coming. Her mother never gave up the search for her daughter. She replayed the moment that her daughter disappeared. And she remembered that she forgot to kiss her goodbye that morning before she went to work. And she has felt guilty about that for the last 18 years. She said that the night before Jaycee went to bed, she said to me, Mum, before you go to work tomorrow, can you come and kiss me goodbye? And her mum had said, yeah, I will. I'll come and kiss you goodbye. But her mum was running late that morning. So she said, I just left the house not wanting to be late, thinking I would see Jaycee at the end of the school day, and she was still asleep. And she said, I chose not to go to kiss my girl goodbye that morning, wanting to be on time. And for 18 years, I punished myself every day for not kissing her goodbye. Sorry. I just know as a mum that those things would just like stick in your head forever. And then in the interview, Jaycee looks at her mum and says, you remember that too? Because Jaycee always told herself that she wished she'd kissed her mum one more last time. And then Jaycee turns to her mum and said, you could never have known though that they were going to take me. You should never have felt bad about that. You never knew they were going to take me. And her mum says, but it's a good lesson, you know, for other mothers out there. Take a minute for your kids. Do that extra thing that may be inconvenient, but it'll be important to them. And I think that's a really good message, isn't it? To always to do the little things that we think probably don't always matter. This is a picture of Jaycee now. I want to tell you a little bit about what she's doing now, actually. This is Jaycee now. She owns a recovery centre using animals to help other children get through trauma, get through disability and things like that. She uses a horse ranch and she does amazing things out there. Her daughters, who have never been named or pictured, as they shouldn't, they should be able to get on with their life. They have both completed university. They have absolutely done amazing things. They love their mum. They have gone on to achieve absolutely amazing things. They feel pretty unscathed by the whole thing because Jaycee was always such a good mum to them. And they feel really lucky to have the life they have now. Let me just Jaycee owns a company now. It's called Jaycee, as in Jayc, not her whole name. I've got a page open on it actually. Hang on. It's the Jaycee Foundation is a. It's going to come up. It's about creating protected spaces for animals and for children and families in transition, trauma resilience and healing power of animals, reconnection. And she runs workshops to help children use animals in ways to make them feel better. And her book is amazing. If you anyone wants to screenshot it, her book, Jaycee Dugard's Stolen Life, is absolutely an amazing book. And it tells a whole story. It's not an easy read in the beginning, pardon me, about what she went through. But she did survive, and she's doing such amazing things now. I'm going to show you this. This is her mum reading out her victim impact statement because Jaycee refused to go to the court. She didn't want to be around the monsters. She didn't want them to be in her life anymore. So I'm just going to play this quickly. And if they tell her gift, it doesn't really matter because I keep getting in trouble for playing these things, but I think they're important. That's better.
Our reporter inside the courtroom, David, has the emotional reaction that Jaycee's mom read.
Very high emotion. Right now, until the hearing began, the court staff and the lawyers kept us guessing, would Jaycee Dugard indeed be here to tell the Greedos how she felt after her 18 years of captivity? In the end, Dugard was not here and left it to her mother to explain why. Greedo, and then his wife Nancy entered court this morning in Placerville. Jaycee Dugard's mother read a statement describing her own suffering during her daughter's 18 years of captivity. I could hear her crying, said Terry Probin, not in my ears, but in my heart.
Got shaky.
Then Terry Probin read a statement on behalf of Jaycee. I chose not to be here today because I refuse to waste another second of my life in your presence. You make someone else suffer for your inability to control yourself. I have always been a thing of your amusement. I hated every second. You do not matter anymore. Neither of the Greedos spoke in court today. Through her lawyer, Nancy Greedo said, quote, I love the children. I love Jaycee. I'm asking you to find it in your heart to forgive me. Then the judge imposed upon Nancy Greedo the sentence.
How can she say she loved her? How can you say you loved her? Like, you allowed her to get raped so that you didn't get raped. You allowed her children to have, up until the point where they were found, one of them obviously was 15, they had never been to a ball game, they had never been to a swimming pool, they'd never been to a library, they'd never been to a school, they'd never got to see their grandmother, they'd never had anything. Like, that's not love. That's your way. She tried to say she loved them and tried to, hi, is he all right? And tried to use God as a way of saying like, oh, it's okay. It's mad to me that you would ever, that's such a kick in the teeth to say that was love. That's not how love looks, and that's not how love acts.